This video is not only a film study focus on what Nick Emmanwori was able to provide the Seahawks in their 30-24 win over the Tennessee Titans in Week 12 on the road, but also how Mike Macdonald and the entire defensive staff have a high standard of expectation for what Nick Emmanwori has to do on a snap-by-snap basis, whether he's playing the nickel safety or the dime linebacker position. I will show, I think, 8 plays here from the win over the Titans, a 30-24 scoring that, was somewhat disappointing for Seahawks fans and myself in terms of the 2 late scores that Tennessee was able to generate. But nonetheless, you get an idea of what they're asking of Emmanwori on a snap-by-snap basis. So here he's the nickel safety to the field. It's a 1st and 10. And the immediate, quick, decisive run reads, I want you to compare those to a couple of slower pass reads, if you will, a little bit later in the video, particularly against Tennessee. So this is a C-gap insert, Jill ISO type of look by the backside tight end / H receiver combo. So it's an out block, base block, if you will, on the backside by the tight end, and then the wide receiver is going to insert up to the safety at the second level. Because Seattle's a base nickel defense, they see this a lot. Of course, it's very Rams-esque, if you will, and because of the speed with which Nick Emmanwori makes this read, he's able to defeat that block by leverage and then get to the running back, finish in a violent manner. I'll give you the all-22 angle of it as well. The blocking scheme, like I said, should be pretty familiar to you guys in terms of, zone to this side with the entirety of the offensive line, running back going in that direction as well, and then the tight end stepping out to the outside linebacker / edge defender, wide receiver trying to insert and go get the nickel DB and cut him off, give the running back a backside cutback lane potentially. The downhill nature of Nick Emmanwori's read, the quickness with which he does so, and then his physicality to be able to just overpower the wide receiver who, did not have leverage in the end because of how quickly Nick Emmanwori made that read. Same possession here, first possession of the game. It was a long one for Tennessee. Obviously, they go down and get a field goal, I think, to take a 3-0 lead. So this is a 4th and 2, and I'm going to call this tight end leak with kind of a cheat look about it. So the running back is going to release to the flats, and the quarterback reverse pivots in the same direction as the running back. So that's generally referred to, at least by me, as either a cheat play, or some people call it fast to the flats, meaning the running back is going to go out in the flats, quarterback reverse pivot, potentially threaten to run in that direction. That's what Tennessee's trying to show. It's actually not what occurs. The running back cuts the boundary side edge defender. I think it's DeMarcus Lawrence. And since Emmanwori's at the dime linebacker position, I think he's responsible for the tight end. But if we're going to talk about man-free, which is what I believe this is, Job would be responsible for number 1. You've also got another receiver stacked in here. I would presume that he's a responsibility of the boundary side safety, and then that could leave Nick Emmanwori on the tight end. But I don't know what the individual way is that they're going to run this, but we do know how they match up. So the safety ends up taking what was functionally the number 1. I think it's James Prochet. Now he walked down and became 3. So 1, he's the outside guy. 3, he's the inside guy. And so then the way Seattle matches up with this, Job takes over the other receiver. I think that Emmanwori is responsible for the tight end, but 2 things can be true at once. Number 1, it's a really cool scheme. It's a pain in the butt to defend, meaning the tight end leak concept, because you've got the tight end blocking for a moment, and then he's going to release on this path to the field. And then Nick Emmanwori is going to be in trail. 2 things can be true at once, however. I think that Devin Witherspoon, who's the nickel on this play, he's looking for work, so you can't fault Devin Witherspoon for that. So he's looking for work as the running back goes to the side, the quarterback reverse pivots, doesn't go in this direction. He actually settles a little bit more so in the pocket. So Witherspoon's looking for work, you'll see, from the other side, which makes sense, right? You're talking about his eyes here, focusing on the other side. The tight end leak is underneath of his visual focus, and Emmanwori's got to chase it across. I think it's a nicely designed play. I call it tight end leak. People got other names for it. And then added to it, or attached to it, I should say, is this route by the backside number 1 that once Emmanwori sees the tight end leak concept, he's got to go over the top of. So it's just another layer, if you ask me, that was added in there by the Titans to ensure that the tight end had the best opportunity to get this football and get a first down on a 4th and 2. Hopefully didn't belabor that point too much. This is the same play from the end zone angle. So when I talk about number 1, number 2, and number 3, right now, number 1 is the outside guy, number 2 is the inside receiver, and then 3 is the tight end. But it's a compressed look with all 3 of those guys there. Trey bunch, Trey, whatever you want to call it. So it's difficult to define everything by 1, 2, or 3 because we know that the outside wide receiver, I believe that's Prochet, motions down and becomes the inside receiver at the snap. If you're a dedicated nickel and you play this spot every snap, could you maybe respond to this a little better? I don't know because, again, this is underneath of Witherspoon's visual focus. But if you play the nickel every down, then maybe that's one of the things you're a little bit more accustomed to. I don't really want to blame Devin Witherspoon or Nick Emmanwori. If I was responsible for coaching these guys or talking to them, I would want to coach both of them a little bit better in this 4th and 2 situation. But it's a nice design by Tennessee with originally Ward looking in this direction, and that's what draws, I think, Witherspoon to focus on the work coming from the other side. Once Ward settles in the pocket and doesn't actually roll out that cheap play or fast to the flats. In any case, Emmanwori a little bit behind, quite certain that the target gets assigned to him because it's his man in what I would call man-free or cover 1. Moving to the second possession here, and Emmanwori is set up as the nickel safety to the field. Even though the ball's in the middle of the field, he's to the strength of the formation. I'll show you the all-22 angle in a moment so you can confirm. So it's another one of those Jill concepts in terms of the blocking scheme. C-gap insert, where the tight end steps out to the edge defender, and the DB or the wide receiver, again, I think that's Prochet, inserts into the C-gap, and he's responsible for the safety. Emmanwori gets a really quick read here, if you ask me, on the tackle combo with the right guard. And so once again, he's able to defeat the scheme. The wide receiver is not able to get there in time. Well, he actually trips over the foot of his own tight end, and then as a result, his body positioning is low, below the hips, below the waist, and since the right tackle kind of peeled off to go get Emmanwori, this wide receiver gets called for a chop block because you may not block low when someone is already engaged. Really nice job also by Leonard Williams, in my opinion, taking on the double team and then trying to win back to this side such that when the running back goes through this lane, the inside linebacker meets him. That inside linebacker 52 laid some wood in this game, if you ask me. As an aside, one of the names for this concept, the blocking scheme that I'm familiar with, is Jack versus Jill. So Jill would be the tight end stepping out to the edge defender, and then the wide receiver inserting through the C-gap, like I said, which is all the rage in 2025. So many teams are adopting that, as an 11 personnel run scheme to go block the nickel or the strong safety. Whereas Jack would be the wide receiver trying to dig out the edge defender, and then the tight end releasing directly up to the nickel or the strong safety. And the reason why you would have those two terms is so the players could communicate to each other on field based upon defensive alignment which blocking scheme they want to use. That would be an option in the call, not something that the offensive coordinator relays to the quarterback, nor the quarterback says to the other offensive players in the huddle. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. In any case, same play from the all-22 angle. Again, the scheme here is a C-gap insert. And because he's so downhill, because he's so quick, then it forces the running back to stay on his downhill path. With everything clogged up to the side, Boye Mafe also, really embarrasses the tight end here, jumping around him. So the running back has no choice but to try to fill inside. And there is 52. I think that's O'Connell. Looks like a very underrated player to me at inside linebacker. I realize we're moving at a so slow pace. If I'm showing the plays in a manner that's too exhaustive or too detailed, more than welcome to let me know in the comments section. So he's at dime linebacker once again. And I have Woolen spot shadowed at the top. This is on the second possession. And it's a 3rd and 19. This is, of course, the quad screen to, I think that's Spears, the running back. So when I say quads, I mean there's 3 receivers set up to the top side, and then a 4th eligible, in this case, the running back Spears. He'll get the screen and then kind of reverse field. This just shows off the athleticism, the range of impact that Emmanwori has. And it's really cool to see him and Woolen, running together once the running back reverses field here. and tries to get all the way over for a first down. Keep in mind, Woolen was the boundary side corner up there. Field side corner, excuse me. Opportunity to finish the play for DeMarcus Lawrence. And then also for, I think it's Kobe Bryant right here. Running back or reverse field. And then those guys go get it. It's also a really nice job of Emmanwori going over the top of this block by, I think that's Cam Ward. And then Woolen showing off the speed. I think Woolen's been playing quite well in recent weeks. You know, the touchdown against the Rams to Davante Adams. I mean, Davante Adams has been doing that for years, number one. Number two, he's still doing that in 2005. You guys let me know what you think of Woolen's play lately. I almost did a video of Woolen here. Maybe I could get something out on Friday. Me and my family have been traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. So, you know, that's what kind of made this one difficult for me to get out on time or late production for Wednesday night. I do think there's a part of that play where Emmanwori kind of gears down and gets into like second gear and then, reignites to chase the running back once he tries to reverse field. Third possession, back at nickel safety, set up to the field, and this is going to be a boundary side screen. I think Tennessee is hip to what Seattle's doing at this point, meaning they're calling a screen, trying to catch the Seahawks defense in a blitz. Seahawks got really pissed off at a certain point in this game and started blitzing a lot, bringing a lot of pressure. This is an example of that. So the nickel, Emmanwori, is blitzing, and he's trying to navigate the running back and get there as quick as possible. This is one of my favorite coverages that McDonald showed when he came back to Baltimore in 2022. It's a little dangerous. It requires your two hash droppers to really wall things off. I call it 2 deep, 4 under. Other guys have different names for it. It's a tight end screen up here into the boundary. So 2 deep, 4 under. You got 2 deep safeties, and then 4 underneath droppers. Pretty self-explanatory. Emmanwori's not making a play here necessarily. It's a great tackle by Josh Jobe up into the boundary. We're talking about right here. Takes on the receiver's block, and then once the tight end catches the football, is able to disengage, go make the play. I'll pull this back one more time so you guys can see what I'm talking about in terms of the 2 deep, 4 under. Without a blitz by Emmanwori, then you've got, potentially 5 underneath droppers and 2 deep safeties to play a typical or a standard cover 2, if you will. Because of the blitz, we've subtracted one of the second level defenders, and now we've got our 2 high safety look, 2 corners in the flats with outside leverage. Woolen is getting a little bit more depth here, so maybe there's a difference in the call to the field, the bottom side of our screen, with Woolen, the field, the wide side of the field, versus I think that's actually Witherspoon. I believe I called him Jobe. My apologies for that. Into the boundary. No impact necessarily on the play for Emmanwori, other than the blitz that perhaps influenced Ward to get rid of it quicker, but it's a design screen. Third possession, I believe I may have the possessions mislabeled, so my apologies for that, but it's a 2nd and 8. I do know that it's a snag-flat concept down into the boundary that ends up being a completed pass to this receiver here. I believe that's James Prochet. So the running back is going to run into the flats. Tight end basically running a corner, flag route, whatever you want to call it. Probably depends on how old you are and what your experience is with the game, whether it's video game terminology, which is great, in fact, I think, or actual playing or coaching, and depending on your age. So there's a lot going on here. You've got the snag route and then the running back in the flats. That running back is what influences Emmanwori to widen up so much here. And then to open up that window for the wide receiver to sit down. He's basically replacing your heels. Although Emmanwori, was actually in here. He's just kind of sitting it down on the top of the numbers. A lot of these spread offense teams, and that's a spread concept, has landmarks. In this case, it's a vertical landmark directly up the field, just kind of sits down. It's a difficult cover for Emmanwori on a quick game concept. You can see, the ball's already out, right? If he radically goes to the right, to the running back, and gets attached to him, well, then obviously the snag is open. If he sits on the snag, then of course the quarterback's going to throw the ball to the running back. So it's a quick game concept designed to put you in a tremendous amount of conflict. And I think the Seahawks are in a cover 3. So when I say cover 3, I mean you've got 2 flat droppers here. But I think they're matching it to the top. So Witherspoon and I believe Woolen are matching it. So it looks like man up there basically because they're matching the routes. Whereas down here, because you've got 3 to the boundary, running back, tight end, and outside receiver, they're not play match. It's a zone concept down here. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. Let me make sure I cover something as far as Emmanwori goes. He's being put in a lot of different positions, a lot of different reads and reactions, and that's a high standard, in my opinion, that Mike McDonald and Aiden Durde have for him and the whole defensive structure. In some cases, could there be, a slightly, quote, better reaction? Sure. I mean, that's fine. But you try defending Snag-flat as the curl flat defender. Yes, you want to take the curl until there's a flat defender. And in that case, until a flat threat shows up. In that case, it's the running back. It's up to you and your own interpretation on what you'd like him to defend on a 2nd and 8, giving up, I think, 6 or 7 yards. Back at dime linebacker, we're into the 7th possession, and we've got a 2nd and 7. And this is a design play that, man, this is one-time use, if not more, in every single NFL game that I watch. You will catch NFL defenses with this route here. So it's a wheel into the boundary by number 2, in this case a tight end, while the number 1 receiver runs a vertical, and he occupies the boundary side corner. So the boundary side corner, I do know this time, is actually Josh Jobe, because Witherspoon is at the nickel, and Woolen is the corner to the field. So Jobe is occupied by this route here. This is not Emmanwori's, quote, area to cover, all right, on this wheel down the field. In a cover 3, obviously, it would be the corner. So I think that you've got, if Tennessee ran this like 4 times in this game against Seattle, Seattle would cover it the 2nd time. It's a one-time use against Seattle, in my opinion. But this type of play, this wheel into the boundary, when you're motioning 3 over there, so I'm talking about originally, it's a 2x2 set. But then because they're motioning 17 all the way over, it's basically becoming 3 into the boundary. This is a probably 3-time use for a lot of defenses in the NFL. Even the good ones, to be honest with you, it's at least a 2-time use, especially if you get caught into a cover 3. So when I say cover 3, I'm talking about these 4 underneath defenders here, even though the structure of Witherspoon and Bryant here, their width is somewhat different, but I think that's because you end up with 1 to the field. So Witherspoon as a nickel, you can see him identifying 1, and 1's going vertical, not going under, so he just starts to settle. The structure of the cover 3 begins to reveal itself a little better with these 3. Mafe is an outside linebacker who's in the flats. That's not man. To me, this is just, cover 3, and Jobe is going with the vertical, the bait by 1, and then the wheel by 2 ends up being open. Some people say, if you have the flat, you have the wheel. So Mafe is the guy who's taking over the flat concept, which is the motion, and the wheel is by a 2nd defender. It's a cool concept, cool play if you ask me. For me, the way I talk the game as far as cover 3, I will want my corner to allow 1 to press to the safety, but that's a quick adjustment because it was 2 to the field, 2x2 set originally, and then they motioned to create 3 to the boundary. This is going to be a fun one to talk about and see the reactions of anybody in the comment section. He's going to play hook to curl to the field. This is a 3rd and 5 on the 7th possession. Like I said, I believe this is in the 3rd quarter. It could actually be the 4th. So if I have the quarter wrong, my apologies for that. Interesting alignment here. You've got Witherspoon as the outside corner to the boundary, Woolen as the outside corner to the field, and then Jobe is tucked to the inside of the formation here, and it looks like he's going to possibly play man on number 3. He does not. They drop out into a Tampa 2. It's a mesh concept, and so what I mean when I say mesh, if you're unfamiliar with that term, is you've got 2 drags underneath. The backside guy, Okonkwo, and the outside receiver from the field are crossing. And then oftentimes attached to that is this kind of sit route in the middle of the field by the tight end. I think it's Helm. And so they play Tampa 2 here. So you've got a 2-high structure, 23, and Bryant, excuse me, your 2 high safeties. And Jobe is not used to being in this position, in my opinion. So he turns to go get depth, which is what you're supposed to do in the Tampa 2. And I think he sees that the safety is there. We're talking about right here. I think he sees that 23 is there and, doesn't need his help. There's no route down here to the bottom side to threaten 23, so he's able to help out with that vertical. 23 is able to take over that vertical. Excuse me. Job doesn't have to worry about it. So then he tries to turn and find work. At the same time that that's happening, Ward has escaped the pocket. Okay, Ward was originally looking over the middle. Like I said, the presentation pre-snap, Job walked up, making it look like it's man, right? That's why an outside corner would be lined up on the inside of the defensive structure. So it's a four-man rush, and Ward will escape up the middle. At the moment that he does that, again, keep in mind it's 3rd and 5, one of the underneath routes has basically sat down. I think that's Okonkwo. And so Nick identifies that, goes up to it, and also possibly to help out with the threat of the scramble by Ward, and then the tight end route is wide open in the middle of the field. Whose fault is it? I mean, I don't really get into all of that. I actually hate targets being used, especially in zone, because an area of the field that was not open at a certain point in time becomes open because of the mobility of the quarterback, number one, and one of the other routes that presents itself. Let's say that Nick Emmanwori attaches himself to this tight end in the middle of the field. Well, A, Ward could scramble, and B, Ward could just as easily hit Okonkwo sitting underneath. So the way that his own defense functions, Seattle's very good, in my opinion, at passing routes off to one another, to the next zone over. Job's reaction, I think Job, puts himself in position to defend that route initially and then turns, back around once he identifies the safety 23 in position to handle the vertical by himself. Just to compare a little bit, I want to include some film from Week 11 and then also Week 10. If you guys have stuck around this long, thank you very much. You obviously must enjoy the content to a certain degree, or you're looking to just criticize, some of the breakdowns, and that's fine too. But one thing you can't criticize is what the high standard they have for Emmanwori and how he's performing on the field. Some slight criticisms could be offered on some of the pass coverage plays from earlier on. Okay, that's fine. But one thing I think you have to admit is the guy's athleticism is showing up on film in a way that some people didn't think it would when he was drafted in the 2nd round. Tested incredibly quick and athletic. And sometimes in college, the film didn't necessarily reflect that. It is so far in Seattle, if you ask me, and we're not even all the way through his rookie year. This is, of course, the goal line stand, or the stop on 4th down. Okay, the Rams' long possession on 1st down, fullback, tailback, full flow, meaning direct flow at you with both players. It's not split flow with one of them going in one direction and the running back going in the other. And so he gets hands on the tight end / fullback. I called him a fullback, but positionally he's a tight end, lined up as a fullback. And then takes over the route by Kyron Williams. I think actually probably should get a PD here on the throw from Matt Stafford. Quick recognition after triggering downhill. I think his trigger on downhill stuff against the run is perhaps faster or quicker than his reaction sometimes against immediate pass reads. This is the same play from the end zone angle. He's off screen. You'll see him move in when you get the motion by one of the 3 tight ends that's on the field at the time. Downhill trigger because of the tight end / fullback stepping to him. Makes contact and then veers off to the running back in the flats. Really nice play if you ask me. It's a great sequence here on this stop on 4th down, and that's why I'm showing this as part of the Nick Emmanwori video, because it reflects well on his athleticism and his variable usage. The next snap, 3rd and 6 with the ball on the right hash, and now he's set up over into the boundary. So really we've got almost a dime linebacker usage here with Devin Witherspoon being the nickel set up to the field. It's empty configuration by the Rams, and so a little bit of a screen, rub, pick, whatever you want to call it, element with the outside wide receiver, the number 1, which I think is Devontae Adams. So he's typically these guys are assigned to get to the outside shoulder of the number 2 defender in, and that's Emmanwori. So they're typically designed to try to get to the outside shoulder such that this route, once it breaks to the sideline into the flats, is easy to access for the quarterback, Matt Stafford. It's another example of how often the Rams rely on pick, rub, or shield concepts. I said this in the video last week where I talked about it. I thought that the Rams got the first down here, but it's a product really of the athleticism and tackling ability that Emmanwori has shown so far. Because A, he's got poor leverage, not by his fault, meaning he's got inside leverage as the outside wide receiver approaches him, Adams. So he's got to fight over that, number one. Number two, he actually runs into Job out there as the boundary side corner, and so has to regain his balance and then make the tackle. It's a great example, if you ask me, of how he's able to make plays sometimes with greater range than other guys at the same position in the NFL. And then finally, after that 5-yard completion, like I said, Williams was ruled short. This is a 4th and 1. And Nwosu, I think, is going to get pressure along with Leonard Williams. So it's the goal line look that I've spent a lot of time talking about in recent weeks for Seattle. And some people, didn't like it, got some pushback in the comment section, said, hey, I don't think it was really that effective. We just totally disagree on what Seattle's getting out of that look, even last week against Tennessee. But nonetheless, it's a play action with Williams going to the top side of our screen, the right-hand side for the Rams offense, and then Stafford booting in the opposite direction. So if you've lost track of Emmanwori, here he is, chasing the tight end across the field. And on the boot action, you've got one tight end delay releasing, and then the motion tight end has inserted, and he's going to go out into the flats. And again, that motion tight end, look which shoulder he goes to on Bryant. He gets to the outside shoulder. We're talking about here. He gets to the outside shoulder of Bryant as this tight end releases into the flats. In my opinion, that's coached up completely by the Rams for him to get to that shoulder and allow that tight end space, allow that second tight end space to access, because Bryant has effectively been picked or shielded on the play. Only Nwosu elevating, disrupts this pathway for Stafford to possibly throw the ball. Stafford can't really pump fake and then try to make something else happen, because also Leonard Williams is converging on the play. It's a cool stop here that I covered in detail last week as well, but I think it's applicable to talk about it from a Nick Emmanwori standpoint. Finally, a couple of illustrations of the versatility that showed up on film in Week 10. This is, of course, his sack, or split sack, I should say, the only one he's got this year in the second quarter of the game against Arizona. And what I like about this one is, first of all, his usage. He's lined up as the nickel. Okay, you've got two dedicated inside linebackers and then a two-high safety structure. So he's the nickel defender, number one. They do set trips into the boundary. A lot more teams are doing this against Seattle. So he's going to go on this blitz path, right, up the field. A running back is going to veer off and take him. And what I like about this is Emmanwori's ability to stop, get his cleats in the ground, and retrace once the quarterback escapes underneath. So we're talking about right here, put that left foot in the ground while making contact with the running back, and then jump back underneath. Now the quarterback is, quote, right there for him, but it's an NFL play made against NFL competition, coming downhill as the dedicated nickel defender in this particular look. That type of film didn't show up consistently in college, and I think that's one of the reasons why some people weren't sure where he was going to go in the draft. Have to give Seattle a ton of credit for trading up to get him, number one. Number two, as part of a really stacked draft class for the Seahawks in terms of immediate impact, but from the standpoint of Zabel, Emmanwori, Arroyo obviously is the touchdown at this point, and then obviously Horton, who's injured at this time. So finally, the last one, just to illustrate the difference between his coverage and then, I should say augment or supplement his sack with some of his coverage skills that were on display against the Cardinals. So 35-0 here late into the second quarter, and it's a 2nd and 13. Running back's going to release across his face. He's in the dime linebacker position. You got Witherspoon up here as the nickel. So I talked about this 2 weeks ago, and what I'm going to describe is basically that him and Drake Thomas could possibly be banjo or tango, whatever you want to call it, reading the running back. So if the running back was to release to the field, to this side, the top side of our screen, my suspicion is Drake Thomas would take him and Nick Emmanwori would drop, back to the middle of the field. But because the running back releases to the boundary, they do the opposite. And you can actually see Drake Thomas point because the running back releases to Nick's side, number one. Number two, Nwosu misses an opportunity at a sack. Right tackle falls down. Opportunity to get another sack. And Nwosu's having a great year, if you ask me. I'm so glad that he's healthy. But in any case, Emmanwori's athleticism to be able to turn and then run with the running back up the right sideline and get a PD as the quarterback is, really throwing a desperation ball while he's under secondary pressure from Leonard Williams. If you made it this far in the video, a 30-minute film study on one player, first of all, congratulations, and second of all, thank you very much. I think it's quite obvious that they've got incredibly wide net of usage so far, and some of his reads are very decisive and quick and fast. I think that's only improving week by week, in my opinion, and in 2026, it'll probably be even better. I think that John Schneider and the front office deserve a lot of credit for taking him where they did in the context of all the picks that Seattle had in the first. I believe originally it was 82 selections. Traded 2 of those to move up to 33 or maybe 34. I was one of those who didn't necessarily see the film from college lining up with the overwhelming athletic testing. Not to say that I didn't think there was a good football player there. I absolutely did. But I didn't see a top 10 player in the draft, which is what the athletic testing indicated, right? And I get it. There's going to be some who will say, well, they're using him in a simple spot. He's the nickel DB. It's very easy job. No, it's not. First of all, if you've stuck around this long, I recognize you see the folly already in that line of thinking, right? And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to explore not just the game film against Tennessee, but in previous weeks. First of all, the coverage on that goal line stop or that fourth down stop in the first possession against the Rams, spectacular. They're using him as a nickel. They're using him as a dime in coverage, as a blitzer. He's got a quick trigger on run reads. A little bit of hesitation on the tight end leak against the Titans, that 4th and 2 that I covered. Look, it's a pain in the butt, that concept in shorter yardage situations. In my opinion, this is an incredible start. And I don't know that I could have even said 12 weeks ago that this is what we were going to get, especially to the standpoint when I think he gets hurt in week 1. I do know this. McDonald's structure, he's always wanted to present the offense with different groupings, different personnel groupings. And I don't just mean base defense, nickel defense, dime. I mean different players and essentially different versions of a nickel defense. So, for example, here's one. Base nickel at this time. Nick Emmanwori as the nickel DB, the third safety. And then Witherspoon and Job at outside corner. Nickel version 2. Rotate the outside corners. Let's say Woolen is on with Witherspoon instead of Job, and then Nick Emmanwori is the nickel. Nickel number 3, Nick off the field, and then Witherspoon as the nickel with Job and Woolen as the outside corners. Going one step further, dime. Now Woolen, Job, and Witherspoon are all on the field, Witherspoon being the nickel DB to the field, and Nick Emmanwori, the dime linebacker, to the boundary. That is all intentional. And it's something that I've kind of referred to in the past as the 3-corner system in the McDonald's structure. Started really noticing it in 2022 and 2023. This is a little bit of conjecture on my part. I think it adds another 5 to 7% of danger in facing, well, this Seattle defense, but the Mike McDonald structure, because there's different versions of nickel and even dime. But in any case, focusing on Nick Emmanwori for a moment here at the end, he had 8 tackles against the Titans. He had the critical 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th down coverage snaps against the Rams. 4 PDs the week before against the Cardinals. He did actually get beat by the tight end McBride on a somewhat similar concept to that tight end leak that I showed you against the Titans. But so far, I think it's been spectacular in his rookie year. You're more than welcome to let me know what your evaluation is. From a grade standpoint, for me, it's an A for the front office for the whole draft, but for Emmanwori as well. And then Emmanwori's play during the season lines up there as well. He's got 43 tackles, 4 TFLs, 7 PDs so far. Maybe he's not headlining the draft class because of Gray Zabel. Horton as well has had a huge impact, but this is a fun one to produce. And I totally get the Kyle Hamilton comparisons at this point because of the wide range of things they ask him to do and the high level efficiency that he's generally exhibiting on each snap. I appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. If you stuck around this long, you're a film study warrior, and I congratulate you for that. If you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy this film study look at Nick Emmanwori in his rookie season, past the halfway point here now, as we are on to Thanksgiving in Week 13, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.